All right, guys, so it's the last episode of the series, and you've heard me talk about my professional work and also my personal work, but today we're actually going to be outside taking some photos. So you'll see the whole process of loading the film into the camera, shooting the film, and then also developing the film once we get back. So hope you guys enjoy it. Today, we're going to be shooting with a Hasselblad 500 CM, and we're going to be loading some Kodak Tri-X film into it. It's 120 film, which is medium format. So I'm gonna kind of walk through the steps of actually loading the film. All right, so when you're loading the Hasselblad, the back comes off the camera. It's not actually attached to it completely. So what you'll wanna do is take the magazine out of the film holder and you take your 120 film. Today we're shooting Tri-X, like I said. It's a black and white film, probably my favorite film that I ever use. And what you'll want to do is you'll keep one spool over here on this side, and then your film that you're actually shooting will be over here. And you'll load it in, and it just locks into place like this. Now, the back of the film, you want to have the black side facing out. It's just a paper backing that covers the film so no light actually gets to it. You'll wrap it around the back, make sure that it's underneath this little tab here. Take this and you fold it into the spool like that, and then you just kind of keep pressure on it and wind it with this little winder right here on the bottom. Just wind that around, and eventually you'll see an arrow right there. That's your start arrow, and you want to keep that lined up just by the little red triangle right there. So once you're done, flip this right here to lock that down. Take your film holder, load it in, lift the slide up, lock it down, then you'll take this and you'll wind it, winding the film all the way through to where it says 1. Now, the film is already lined up right here, but because there's a dark slide covering this up, no light's actually going to get to it. Take this, mount it to the back of the camera, lock it in, and you're ready to shoot. All right, so like I said, we're going to be shooting with a Hasselblad 500 CM today, and these cameras don't have a built-in light meter. You can get a viewfinder that attaches right here, and some of them have a light meter in there, but this is a waist level finder to where you look down through the camera and there's no light meter. So what you need is an actual handheld light meter to meter your scene. Basically what this will do is it'll measure the amount of light in your location here, and it'll give you an exposure reading, and you can adjust things like the film speed, or compensate for a certain aperture you want to shoot at, or even the shutter speed. So these are a big help whenever you're out shooting film, especially whenever you don't have a built-in light meter in your camera. All right, so when you're shooting with a handheld light meter, you want to make sure that whatever you're shooting is what you're metering for. So the light right here falling on the sign is a little bit different than the light falling behind it because it's actually in the shade. And because I'm mainly focusing on this sign here, you want to make sure that that's what you're exposing for. If I were exposing for the highlights in the background, this would be a lot darker than what I would want it to be. So you just take your light meter and get an average reading as to the light that's falling onto the subject. And right now it's giving me a reading of f4 at 500 for 400 speed film. So I'm going to set that to my camera and then go back to where I want to shoot from, compose, focus, and then actually shoot. One thing to keep in mind whenever you're shooting 120 film is the fact that compared to 35mm, you're going to get less exposures on your camera. This camera is a 6x6 centimeter negative, so you're going to get 12 shots on it. So rather than shooting a digital camera where you just have endless amount on an SD card or a compact flash or any kind of recording device like that, or even 35mm film where you get 24 to 36 shots on one roll, this you're limited to 12. So sometimes you're going to have to be a little bit picky with your shots and, a little bit more particular about it. loaded the film, we've shot the film, and now we're here back at my house and we're gonna actually develop the film. As you can see, we're just here in my bathroom. You don't need a big dark room to do this. You really don't need a room that's light tight either. You can do this under lights. You just need to use something like this, which is a changing bag, and I'll explain that here in a minute. But as you can see, this is everything that I use to develop black and white film. Color film, there's a little bit more chemistry involved, but black and white, this is basically all you really need. So first thing you need to do is you've got your roll of film here, and you need to get it inside this tank onto a reel. But the problem is it has to be done in complete darkness. You can't do it and let any light get to it. So you need to take your film out and put it on one of these reels using one of these bags here. You want to take your bag. The way the bag works is it's got two zippers here. You put everything in this zipper, zip that up, and then zip the outside up to make sure no light gets in. And then there are these two armholes that you put your arms in, and you can actually work with the film out of the tank and everything without light actually getting through it. Now our film is actually inside of here without light ever getting to it. And like I said before, the paper that your film was on the spool, it's all just literally a big roll of paper that covers it up from letting light get to it. You're gonna take something that's gonna hold at least enough chemistry that's gonna fill up your tank, in which case this is a 20-ounce tank. So take something that's gonna hold that. And your developer, you wanna make sure you measure the temperature of it. And right now, this is giving me a reading of, should be about 70 to 71 degrees. Usually, film, black and white film anyway, is suggested for about 68 degrees, but it's pretty forgiving, and if you develop it something a little bit warmer than that, you just compensate with the time that the actual developer is in the tank. So, what a lot of people like to do is you pre-rinse your film, just fill up the tank, a few times, fill it up, kind of mix it up a little bit, then pour it out. So once you get most of that out, measure 20 ounces of your developer. So now that's ready to get poured in. What you're going to need to do is make sure you have some kind of timer set up. I use this app called the Massive Development Chart, and it's great for black and white developing from home. It's got every film, every developer you can come up with, and all you do is just punch in what you're working with, and it'll give you a chart that'll has a built-in timer, and it'll give you the proper times to develop. So now you'll just take your developer, get your lid ready here, and this also you put into the tank and you twist it, and that'll keep the film moving around with fresh chemicals constantly up against the film. So once you pour it in, right towards the end of it, go ahead and start your timer. And while that's going to click, you sit here and you just twist the knob here, and that'll keep your film moving around with that chemical actually getting over top of the film, which is actually developing it. And you hear it beep and it stops. Now, if you hit your tank like that a couple times off the counter, that'll just make sure that there's no air bubbles, because when you're sloshing the chemical around, you're going to build up bubbles, and you don't want any of the bubbles resting against the film, because you're going to leave a mark there where there's no chemical, So it's going to warn me. You just do this while it's agitating, or while it's clicking, you agitate, and then when it's done, you just click it. So your next step is stop bath. Now what stop bath does is it will actually stop your developer so your film doesn't develop any longer. Okay, so we're down to the last 10 seconds of the stop, and when that's done, this is just water, like I said, so you just pour it right down the drain and move on to your fixer. Next up is the actual fixer, and what the fixer does is it fixes your image onto your negative, and it also makes your film no longer light sensitive. So after we fix it, we'll be able to take it out of the tank and make sure everything turned out good before we go to the final wash. Like I said, we'll do this for the first minute, just like the developer, and then from there on it'll be every 30 seconds for 5 seconds at a time, and we do that for 4 minutes, usually anywhere from 4 to 5. Okay, so we're about down to the last 15 seconds of the fixer. So what you'll get ready to do, go ahead and rinse your funnel. Again, since you're using your developer, you don't ever want to mix chemicals. But once this is done, we'll go ahead and pour the fixer back in. It's also reusable. And go ahead and start pouring. Now if that's done, like I said, the film isn't light sensitive anymore, so you can go ahead and take it out of the tank just to check it. So when we take this out, now you'll see on here are some actual images, and that means it worked. And everything checks out, so you just re-spool it back up, put it back in your tank here, and then I'm going to set it for the final wash. Alright, so we're just about done with the final rinse here, and we're rinsing for 5 minutes. And once that's done, we'll pour the water out and fill it up just a little bit above the actual height of the film, and then we're going to pour this rinsing aid in there. And what that does is basically get one final clean rinse, just to make sure that everything is spot on, and you won't have any marks left from where the water dried actually on the film. So when you're done with this, in about 5 seconds, according to the timer, you just take your water here and pour it over top of your squeegee, just to kind of get some of that on there. Wet it down before you drag it across your film. And now, set your film there, and as you're pulling it off the reel, you just squeegee it, basically to get all the water off of it. So now that the film is on there, you can finally look at all your exposures, see how everything looks, and take a film clip, or just a regular, any kind of clip. This is another simple thing you can pick up from a photo store. It just clips your film right there, put one on the top, and these have got hooks on there, and they're also weighted. So whenever you've got it hanging, it's got tension pulling down the film, and that's going to keep your film hanging straight and drying straight. That's basically all the steps of, loading your film, shooting it, and now developing it. So hopefully that was somewhat informative for you guys, and just get out there, try it. It's fun, simple, and as you can see, I do it all from home and don't have any problems with it. So thank you guys for watching this episode and the rest of the series. Hope you guys liked everything, and I plan on doing a lot more videos in the future for whether it be tips on shooting, reviews on different cameras, old cameras that you don't really hear a lot about, things like that. So hope you guys liked it, and thanks.